welcome to the second session, and the first talk is by Dr. Bindu Bamba on gender and physics, and I would like to request her to, I will give you a time limit around 5 minutes.
If you can.
Oh yeah, okay. Then I'll just rush.
Yeah, it would be nice if you would, so that we'll all try to finish on time.
Dr. Sai Preeti, Dr. Venu Mankad, and the chairman of the physics department and the dean of the school of GITAM, Madhurima, Vandana, Shubhavati.
It is on.
Madhurima, Vandana, Shubhavati, Ram, and Rukmini, and all my other friends. It gives me great pleasure to talk to you about a subject which you heard me speak about 100 times, and so I apologize for that. And I start my lecture with what's on my and it says, you can read it,
Hand mic.
you never understand a person. You never understand a person unless you consider things from the point of view until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. That you never understand a person unless you consider things from his or her point of view until you climb into her or his skin and walk around in it. So the only way you can understand what it means to be a woman in physics is to be a woman in physics. And so that, I guess, is my qualification to talk about the subject. And so at least I understand myself, and so therefore I hope you will understand me also. The other thing is that, as I told you, it's not changed.
Niranjan. Now working.
Okay. So, as I said, you've heard me talk about this in various forums again and again. And the question is, the first time I gave a talk on women in physics was 1992, when maybe some of you were not even born. And in 1992, we were facing the same problems that we are facing today. Okay, almost the same problems, except for in the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, there has been a phase transition in the topic. So, the reason why we keep on talking about this topic is that there is still a lack of women in physics, and it continues to be a problem for several reasons. And physics, which was traditionally male-dominated, is still male-dominated, and with women pursuing careers in this discipline compared to men are far and few and far between. So the gender disparity continues from at least 1992 to today. Okay, and so therefore this is my walking around in this skin for 31 years. For 31 years, I have this problem has been bothering me, and it still bothers me. So the thing is that when people ask, why do you go on and on about gender in physics, you know? What does it matter? Somebody, when I was giving this talk in University of Hyderabad, somebody from the maths department says, you keep on talking about gender. What is this gender? Go to the psychology department, go to the English department, they're all women there. Talk about gender there, but why males are not there. And so there are some places where the males are more, and there are some places where women are more. So why are you going on gender? Okay, leave us mathematicians and physicists be. Okay, so So then I had to tell him, why would diversity in a subject like physics matter? What have women, what has the presence of women in the field contributed to the field? Well, female perspectives have played a crucial role in the development of voice recognition and natural language processing, including ChatGPT. So ChatGPT can hear now with a woman's voice and a man's voice, I mean a woman's perspective and a male perspective. Health technology. Women have contributed to the development of many types of instruments which are very pertaining to how women's bodies function, and therefore health technology is greatly improved because women are in the field. Inclusive design interfaces, for example, in technology products and other design ideas have come from women with a different perspective. There has been bias mitigation and a little bit of bias mitigation in artificial intelligence machines also, due to the fact that both type of genders contribute to their development. There has been a social impact and sustainability, and women have been great activists for things like climate change and sustainability. So that area has also been affected by the diversity that women have brought in. So it is important that we keep on reminding ourselves that it is important to have a diverse workplace, that it is important that we have gender, at least some semblance of gender equality, and that we have not only a diverse voice in terms of gender, but in terms of caste, race, and other types of thinking. Because in science, John Stuart Mill once said that people seem to think that what you're born with is what you are, and that has been actually refuted by science, by the concept of genotype and phenotype. Genotype is what you're born with, and phenotype is how the environment shapes you. Okay, so it is the social milieu around you which determines your gender. You may have a certain sex, male or female, but your gender is determined by how your phenotype progresses, not by how your genotype progresses. Okay, so even science has said that the definition of woman and man is not simply biological. Okay, it is very fluid. It is the environment around you that makes you what you are. And but the genetic argument is used again and again. Oh, we are biologically different. Oh, we are weaker. Women's brains are different. Then there are all these business about brain studies. Female brains are different. Male brains are different. Well, if it is true that female brains are different and male brains are different, this is not proved, then all the more reason to have diversity. Because you can have two different types of brains attacking a problem instead of one type of brain attacking a problem. So either way, whether female brains and male brains are the same or they are different, diversity is important. And because it is only through diversity that really difficult problems get solved. ये क्या हो रहा है? Oh, okay. But of course, as I said, stereotypes and biases about gender roles persist in society, and they also influence career choices and opportunities. So this can also, because of these stereotypes, one can discourage girls and women from pursuing physics and other STEM subjects. It's interesting, one of my colleagues, a colleague of mine, and Shubhavati, she once said that when she was doing neutrino studies, which is what she works on, it was in a place where all the other men were doing string theory. And so at one stage when she was talking about her work, it was said, was it you or when talking about your work, they said, well, you do neutrino physics, we do real physics, you know, G mu nu and all that. Sandhya, right? We do GNU and all that, as if, you know, even the type of physics that women's brain can sort of process is somehow less than men. This is a stereotype, okay? And there are many such stereotypes that, and I suppose because she became much more successful than them, that was a slap in their face. But these are the stereotypes that are there. So even when women are in physics, they are thought to be lesser than the male, or working on problems which are not as, you know, fundamental or as earth-shaking as the male problem, the problems that males are working on. Then there is a lack of, because there are so few women in physics, there is a lack of role models for women to look up to. And and role models play a crucial role in inspiring individuals. So the more the women in physics, the more they will inspire younger girls to see that I can be that physicist. There's a wonderful, wonderful photograph that came out after the launch, after the ISRO launch, of all these women with flowers in their hair and saris together, you know, applauding the launch. And you know, if you see more photos like that, you would be, as a young girl, you would say, oh, I can be that person, okay? So it's not a lab coat, a man in a lab coat or with Einstein-y hair, although mine is coming close to it, that inspires women. It is people like themselves, okay? So then there are a lot of cultural and institutional barriers within the physics community, and they are in the hiring process. And here there is a lot of bias in the hiring process, in the sense that when it is a two-body problem of a woman and a man in physics, it is always the woman who is expected to relocate. And it is, and then suddenly out of the blue, nepotism rules are pulled out of the hat, you know, and from nowhere. Up till then, everybody has been equal and everybody has been a good physicist, but now that it comes to hiring husbands or wives and things like that, oh, nepotism, they'll form a group, they're not individuals in themselves, and so on. And and you know, like if a woman applies for a job, they say, oh, but your husband is there, how will you work here? And it's never the other way around. So there are lots of cultural and institutional barriers also, still from 1992 onwards. 1993 I came to Hyderabad. Then of course this will be talked about tomorrow a lot, and that is the confidence and imposter syndrome. That even the women who do go into physics, they have a lot of, they are always seen as the other. So they're not one of the guys. They're seen as the other, and so they, in spite of all the qualifications they have, in spite of all the accomplishments they have, they still feel that they are not doing enough or that they are not good enough. Because from the beginning, it has been instilled in them that, you know, this is not a woman's field. You are there because of some reason or the other, but you are not the norm. And therefore, it's like you are given the imposter syndrome, that I'm here, but I don't belong here. So there's the sense of non-belonging to the field that is there. So, and also, as I said in the example I gave earlier, discounted achievements. Anytime, I have noticed that I have a number of female colleagues who do work with their husbands, and they are probably, according to me, better. But whenever they write papers together, it's always, oh, the paper is written with their husband. It happened to me. I wrote a paper with my husband. I went to an interview, and they said, oh, you've written this paper with your husband. What is your contribution? So I said, you know, I also have a son. You tell me how much my contribution is and how much his contribution is, and then I'll tell you that whether this paper is written with my... it's always the women's contribution that is devalued in a paper written between equals, you know. And I'm sure I see a lot of people nodding, so I'm sure a lot of people have experienced that. So most of you will then say, let me not, and I did, let me not write any papers in math. That's the only solution. Okay, so this requires collective effort still on all educators, on all policymakers, institutions, physics communities, and to provide more and more initiatives. And that is why we are still talking about it, and that is why we are still having this conference, and that is why we are very thankful to Shubhavati and Mandana for having this conference here, because these points, still we want a society where we don't have to even mention these things. Okay, so what do we do about it? So there is a very famous book by Polya, How to Solve It. So once you have a problem, which we do have clearly, one has to see how do we solve it. So how much scientific research is conducted into gender differences in an attempt to find the reason for absence of women in mathematics and physics. So statistics are done, but analysis of statistics is lacking. Then how much research is done in understanding various social factors that inhibit intellectual growth of women. What is important is that research has to be done that prove not only that women are not substantially different in handling physics and mathematical problems because of their left brain or right brain being different, but how systematically the systemic problems of the society can derail any attempts for them to be original at all, and say neglect their family. That is the biggest systemic thing. And usually women make the sacrifice of often not having a family for this reason, if they are very committed to science. And the scientific method is not divorced from society. So if the society around women changes, I'm sure that even the scientific method will evolve. It is not written in stone. Okay. So we found that in the Indian, that although for institutes like TIFR and maybe other institutes in the country, SN Bose, HRI, and some IITs, there has been some research that was undertaken at least in the early 2000s, I think 2002 to 2005, but we have very little quantitative research that has been done in universities on the factors that are responsible for the possibility of a gender-even scientific leadership. People talk about just absence of women, but not about absence of women as leaders in science also. And since universities are supposed to be the breeding and grooming grounds for intellectual growth, such studies are necessary. Okay, so in 2009, the University of Hyderabad, I said but was among the first to include gender and science in their Center for Women's Studies. It came after a lot of fighting, which is one thing I'm good at, and because there are now, so my argument was because there are now so many women doing science, and more women teaching science, and more feminist scholarship about science, and more of it is produced by women scientists, this should be examined in the Indian context. So by including this area of study in the curriculum, we would try to understand the true values of women living in a scientific world and whether they strengthen their existence with science and are recognized. So this happened, and I had a number of supportive colleagues that from biosciences, from medical sciences, because we wanted that gender versus sex issue to be highlighted. And even from history, we had a number of women who were involved in this, but unfortunately in about 2015, the shift of the center shifted to things like trans and the otherness in women's studies, and so since women in physics was not researched enough, trans people in physics was even less research. So this sort of closed down this effort. Although we did get a few theses and MPhil and MSc and PhD thesis out of it, which are very quoted around the world. But our aim was sixfold. So we wrote a full document on why we should have women why we should have women in science in a gender studies department in the University of Hyderabad. And first is to give recognition to studies on women in science as an interdisciplinary subject, bringing together expertise across disciplines and critique conventional constructions of knowledge. Does knowledge change? Does epistemology change when gender changes? Okay, that is a very difficult question to answer. Will inclusion of more women in science change science itself, or is science fixed and you just do it? Okay, so that's a very deep epistemological question that we wish to answer but never could. Then the examination of issues of women in science in a holistic sense, not examining just women scientists, but as women scientists' position in society as a whole. That is, you're a scientist at your workplace, but at home you're suddenly just a housewife, or that dichotomy that is there. Then study the changing images and representation of women in science, creating an awareness and concern for issues of women scientists across different categories and levels of people, both within and outside the university. We wanted to have a database, which I think now there is one in the academy, for relevant to gender studies in science, have symposia and conferences highlighting some major concerns towards removing bias against women, which is this conference. This slide was reflecting 2009, but now we are actually implementing some of these things, and then working towards making the scientific community an egalitarian, equal opportunity system. I think this will occur in another 100 years, but at least we can put it down in our wish list. Okay. Now, it is not only 5 minutes. Okay, so it is not only our mandate, but it is the world mandate, and the world mandate is implementation of 40% target for women's representation in science bodies. 40%. Okay, so I'm just going to, since I'm running out of time, let me just go to, I talked about this, but I just want to show you some. Okay, so